All right, so let's review the countries that we studied yesterday. Up here, you have Iceland, and then you have Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, and those are considered to be the Scandinavian countries. Then this island here is Ireland, but notice only the green part because the pink island and the pink part are the four parts to the United Kingdom. And now we're going to start labeling new countries. All right, label the Netherlands and Belgium. They're right next to each other on your map. Netherlands has a region called Holland, and Holland is well known for the Dutch population. It has the windmills, it has the tulips, it has the wooden shoes, and so forth. So both Netherlands and Belgium speak Dutch, therefore, they have kind of this cultural connections. To Iowa, there we have places like Pella that are very Dutch, where you have Central College, and they're called, the Flying Dutchman, and they have the Tulip Festival in May, just like that, because there's a lot of ancestors from the Netherlands or Belgium settled there. Belgium has a couple other things that it's well known for. Belgian waffles, of course, are super delicious, and they are named after the place where they were invented in Belgium. Also, the capital of Belgium is Brussels, and Brussels sprouts were first grown there in the 1200s. And so obviously that is where it gets its name. So the country and the capital of Belgium has foods named after them. All right, go ahead and label Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. And they're all along that eastern side. I also have in gray identified Russia, which is this part right here, and the big grayish tan part over here. That's kind of important to know because the countries that you have labeled here on your map are actually kind of new when it comes to Europe. In 1991, the former Soviet Union broke up into 15 independent countries, and that whole region it was at first called the Soviet Union, and then it was called the Commonwealth of Independent States. Today, they are all 15 independent countries. But the countries of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Moldova, and Ukraine were all part of the Soviet Union. And so when they broke up, they just divided into predetermined borders. And so those countries are pretty new. Now, those countries sometimes are considered Europe, sometimes they're considered Asia. The Ural Mountains, which kind of run right in this neck of the woods, are really the thing that divides Europe from Asia, because the big landmass of Eurasia doesn't have water that separates it. All right, label Poland and Germany. They are two fairly big countries, and you might have already been able to identify them before we started studying. Germany, its checkered past has a lot of history, but some of the biggies, some of the big changes is, of course, Germany was one country until the end of World War II. And because of the rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler, the Soviet Union was angered that a country could come to that much power and change politics that easily. So they created the Berlin Wall, and that's what separated East Germany and West Germany. And so there were really two halves of Germany until November 9th, 1989. This is a video that talks about the fall of the Berlin Wall. We will watch this the next day when I get back, and we'll discuss this. All right, let's move on. Now, we're identifying quite a few countries in this next segment. I have them all circled in red on my particular map because you can see that they are very small. So the furthest one north, next to the Netherlands and Belgium that we already identified, is Luxembourg. Then the one further south is Liechtenstein. The furthest one west is Andorra. And then moving east along the coast is Monaco. And then you have San Marino on the east coast of Italy and the Vatican City on the west side of Italy. And then south of Italy, you have Malta. Now, obviously, what they all have in common is that they are very small. And for most of us, we look at those countries and say, why are they even a country? Why doesn't somebody take them over? They're such a small, tiny little area. Well, some of these small, tiny areas actually have a lot of political clout and historical significance and have existed for a very long time. And so to preserve that, they kind of remain independent. Now, these small European countries, and I'm going to reference it as countries because some of them are autonomous regions, some of them would be considered a principality, some of them are just basically a neighborhood. But we're going to talk about how big each of these are. Now, to reference their size, I put the size of Iowa in square miles at the bottom. 56,700 square miles is the size of Iowa. And you can see the biggest one, Luxembourg, is only 998 square miles. So clearly much smaller than even the state of Iowa. Andorra is the next biggest at 181 square miles. Then you have the island country of Malta at 124 square miles. Liechtenstein is only 62 square miles in area. San Marino is 24 square miles. Monaco is just short of 1 square mile, basically about the size of the city of Dysart. And the Vatican City, which is 0.17 square miles, so not even a quarter of a square mile. So you can see all of these are very small. However, some of them have a lot of power, a lot of history, a lot of money. So they are somewhat significant. So Andorra. Andorra is a tiny little country in between France and in between Spain, and they are in the Pyrenees Mountains. So you can see that there. The whole entire country is covered with the little triangle symbols for mountains, and it is quite small. However, tourism is huge. And so looking at this website, you can see that there are lots of things here that talk about what you could do in the winter. But even though it is in the mountains, they have tons of things that you can do in the summer. And so tourism is huge for this tiny little country of Andorra. San Marino. San Marino is considered to be a microstate, and it was founded in 301 AD. This is an aerial view or an upper view in the mountains of the city or the microstate of San Marino. And it actually has one of the oldest working constitutions in the world. And their written constitution was created in the 1600s, and that constitution is still in effect today. All right, the Vatican City is not even really a city, it's a neighborhood. And you can see on this model here, this dark black line is actually a wall. And it says wall right there. The only way you can get into the Vatican City is through St. Peter's Square, which ironically is not a square at all, it's an oval. And it is basically a neighborhood inside the city of Rome. But how significant is it? It's clearly the home base, the icon, the symbol of Catholicism. This is where the Pope resides. And this is kind of where, home base is for this particular religion that, of course, was created during the Roman Empire and flourished, and now Christianity is the world's largest religion. Inside of the Vatican City is probably the most famous thing that people go see, and that is the Sistine Chapel. And again, it has tiled floors or mosaic floors that is culturally very similar to ancient Rome, what they did. And then if you go up to the walls and even up to the ceiling, obviously it is painted, And this is what people come in to view and to see, is all of these paintings. And ironically, most of these paintings are religious, but more ancient Rome religion than Catholicism. And some of them have that, probably the newer ones down below, but the ones up top have cherubs and, other religious things as well. So it is kind of a combination of old religion and new religion. All right, Monaco. Monaco is a principality, and there are two things that Monaco is well known for. One is the Grand Casino, and it's a casino unlike the Isle here in Waterloo, but it's a casino that is for high rollers only. As a matter of fact, it costs quite a bit of money just to get into the Grand Casino, and they aren't betting, quarter slots or penny slots. They are betting thousands or millions of dollars at a time. So the Grand Casino is kind of the thing. And then the other thing that it's well known for is the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. And the Monte Carlo Grand Prix is a Formula One race that is not done on a track, but it's done on the city streets of Monaco. And so they're racing right on the streets. And right here is the Grand Casino. So the race comes right here by it. This is the Grand Casino. Bleachers are put up there, and it's, a huge, huge event that makes lots of money every year. Monte Carlo, the Grand Prix also was put into the Iron Man movie. And so if you've ever watched the Iron Man movie, I think it is the second one, that is identified, and Mr. Stark races in that, and so that was one of their other claim to fames that maybe you're familiar with. This place also has lots of money, not just because of the Grand Prix or the casino, but many rich people live in this 1 square mile because they don't pay federal income tax. And to get that exemption of paying federal income tax, you have to claim residency there at least 6 months of the year. So you can't just have an apartment and not live there. Can't just have a post box at the mail box to get your mail there. You actually have to declare your residency there and prove that you're there 6 months. All right, France, probably one of the countries that you're most well known with. It's a larger country, and clearly you've studied that with World War II and other things throughout history. Its most iconic thing is the Eiffel Tower. And the Eiffel Tower is actually was a temporary structure that was only going to be there for the World's Fair, and then they were going to tear it down after the World's Fair. But because it was such an iconic piece of architecture, they decided to leave it. Since then, they have a lot of laws that no buildings can be constructed taller than this. So it is the tallest structure. Now, there were buildings before that law went into effect that are taller, but this is no longer, can you build, and this is going to be like the tallest. Other things that have happened, obviously in 2015, they colored, or actually just lit up it differently in the colors of the French flag, because of the 130 people that were killed by terrorists. They were also victim to Charlie Hebdo, or Charlie Hebdo was victim to terrorism as well. It's also well known for the Arc de Triomphe. The Arc de Triomphe is in the center of 12 streets, and it's on the iconic Champs-Élysées Avenue that you can see right here, one of the main avenues in France. Underneath it, it has the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You can go up in it, and it's a tiny little spiral staircase, and you can go to the top and view the city as well. And this was built, of course, by Napoleon to mark all of his triumphs.